We all know that in 1492 Columbus sailed the ocean blue, the Spanish conquered the Americas and enslaved the natives too. The Spanish went as far north as California and Florida and set up missionaries to spread Christianity. They gave cities names like the town of Our Lady the Queen of the Angels of Porciuncula and Saint whoever the Spanish were praying to this week. That first one eventually became Los Angeles. The French also got here before us to trade for beaver, and if you chart that out it looks something like this. Turns out, the French were a lot nicer than the Spanish. There weren't a lot of them, and they were really just here to trade fur, so they were mostly peaceful. They intermarried, which resulted in Métis people, and any new Catholics were considered full-on citizens. The Spanish also converted locals to Christianity, of course, and had a similar mixed race of mestizos. Now, they didn't receive equal treatment and were made to give up their culture, but even they were still integrated into colonial society. By comparison, the English wanted nothing to do with the locals. Now, it's almost 100 years after 1492. The French are already there, the Spanish are already there, and the British are lacking. So they decide to start a colony. And this guy, Sir Walter Raleigh, gives some people money to start a colony here in Roanoke, Virginia. And hopefully they make more money finding gold and silver. Although, if you look at a map of Roanoke, you'll see that it's clearly not in Virginia, because it's not there anymore. Just like Sir Walter Raleigh went searching for El Dorado and never found anything, Roanoke never found anything. And just like he had his head cut off for trying to overthrow King James, the life of Roanoke was cut short. The first group of settlers fucking quit because they didn't have enough food and were being attacked by Native Americans, so Raleigh sent a second group. Almost as soon as they got there, one man was shot to death while searching for crabs, and also they didn't have enough food and were being attacked by Native Americans. The first English child was born in the colonies, named Virginia, and we have no idea how long she was actually alive, but her name's still been used to sell products and shit. After a few years, the colony was found totally abandoned. Either they all starved to death or were massacred or taken in by the natives. It's a mystery. In 1607, the British would establish the first permanent colony in Jamestown, actual Virginia. It was another business venture financed by the Virginia Company and led by the unforgettable John Smith, who looked like this. John Smith was actually going to be executed for staging a mutiny until they found out he's supposed to be the leader. Of course, when the colonists went to Jamestown, told to go find gold, silver, and copper, they didn't have enough food and were being attacked by Native Americans. To the Powhatan Indians, this was not Virginia, this was Senecamoca, which means densely inhabited land and translates to fuck off. The Powhatans were led by a man named Powhatan, whose actual name was Wahunsonacaw or Wahunsonacock, and his brother Opechancanough captured John Smith while he was exploring the Chickahominy River and took him to the central village of Werowocomoco. All of these are much cooler names than John Smith or Jamestown. He was brought before Powhatan, they spared his life, and he was able to trade with them for food. The colonists became dependent on food supplied by Powhatan Indians. Meanwhile, they accidentally burned down the village, they sat in the burned ruins as the river froze over, and for all that, they sent back a ship full of fool's gold. Jamestown was still starving, sometimes taking food by force, and Powhatan quickly realized they were here trying to make money. Jamestown was weak right now, but the end goal was to make a profitable business and have control over the land. In 1609, John Ratcliffe became the new leader of Jamestown, and with John Smith gone, Powhatan cut off trade with the colonists, hoping to starve them out. Winter of 1609 became known as Starving Time. Really good name, you guys. At least 80% of the colonists died. They ate snakes and even boiled the leather of their shoes as food, eventually resorting to cannibalism. In December, Ratcliffe was offered to trade with the Powhatans, but it was a trap. He was tied to a stake in front of a fire, and native women skinned him alive with mussel shells and had him watch pieces of his own skin be tossed into the fire. Finally, they skinned his face and burned him alive, and for some reason he's the villain of Disney's Pocahontas. In spring, Lord Delaware arrived. We named a state after that guy, and Delaware brought backup. We took the Powhatans to war. The colonists burned down houses, cut cornfields, captured the Powhatan commander's wife and children, then threw the children overboard and, quote, shot out their brains in the water. The war went on for 5 years and was brought to an end because the colonists had captured Powhatan's daughter, Pocahontas. While in captivity, she learned English, converted to Christianity, married another fucking guy named John Rolfe, ending the war and bringing peace to Jamestown. There's a lot of rosy versions of this story, but we'll never really know if she was coerced into doing this, making the best of a bad situation, or truly loved him. You'll notice this isn't John Smith, who many historians believe made up the story that Pocahontas had spared his life. Pocahontas was then brought to England, where she was treated well, treated almost like a celebrity, and John Rolfe showed her off to investors as the civilized savage. This is Pocahontas 2: Journey to a New World, the direct-to-video sequel, and Pocahontas died of some illness before they could return to Virginia. But John Rolfe did manage to make the colony turn a profit in the form of tobacco. The colony continued to grow as profitable trade demands expanded farther west and encroached more and more on the Native Americans. There were 2 more Powhatan Wars before we got them under control, but the Virginia colony was now stable. Over the next few years, they brought in their first African slaves, marking the beginning of the colonial South.